A list of Disney duos requires twice the fun, and that's just what you're gonna be getting. Hello everybody, Nicky Marra here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you've all had a fabulous week and are ready for yet another fun ranking video. Now, ranking Disney duos, Disney's greatest partners in crime. There are certain animated Disney characters who have become synonymous with yet another. When you think of one of them, you can't help but imagine them together with another character. And so in setting out to create this ranking video, I had a list that was so unbelievably long of Disney duos that, it scared me. After going through the list so many times, I have finally whittled it down to 40 pairs of Disney characters. But 40 pairs, my friends, requires me to speak about 80 different Disney characters. And so remember when I said a video about Disney duos requires twice the fun? Well, that's where I get to tell you the exciting part. As this, friends, is going to be part 1 of my ranking of Disney duos. Again, in planning for this video, I ended up with 40 different pairings, meaning 80 characters in total, and I simply couldn't get it down any further. And so the video you're watching today is going to consist of number 40 all the way down to number 21, the bottom half of my list. And so while yes, we are talking today about some of my lesser favorite characters, these are still some pretty iconic Disney duos. And you'll just have to stick around for next week's video to find out who's my absolute favorite amongst the duos. But if you are new to the channel, hi, my name's Nicky Marra and I'm a Disney content creator. I got my start over on TikTok, but have joined the YouTube community and have been loving making long form videos for you guys, of which I have brand new videos coming out every single Friday at 5 p.m. So make sure to hit subscribe down below so that way you never miss out on any future magic from me, namely part 2 to this video. And if you'd like to find me on any of my other social medias, my handle is @NickyMarra with 2 Y's and 2 R's, and you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat for even more magic. Now, as always on the channel, before we jump into the ranking video, I do have some brief disclaimers and then conditions for our list today. But if you would just like to jump right into our ranking list, then you can head right to this timestamp. First and foremost for our disclaimers, I am not associated with the Walt Disney Company, and therefore I don't speak for the brand or the company, and any and all opinions in this video are just my own and do not reflect those of the brand or the company. But secondly, I welcome any and all opinions surrounding these wonderful Disney duos down in my comment section. Again, I did have to whittle the list down to 40 Disney pairings, so it is very possible that your favorite Disney duo did not end up in my final ranking list. And so if you don't see your favorite duo in today's ranking list, then they could absolutely show up in next week's video, but still give them some love down in the comments. And thirdly, for the disclaimers, I do want to give a brief spoiler warning for all of the Disney animated movies and Disney characters we're going to be talking about in today's video. For these videos, I don't plan on going into too much plot depth, but there's always the possibility that I could end up giving a little bit of a spoiler. So if you don't want anything spoiled for a specific Disney character or Disney movie, then I recommend just jumping on up to the next number on today's list. But next, for the conditions, friends, these characters must be an iconic pairing of Disney characters. Well, Disney or Pixar. Yes, friends, for these ranking videos, I have decided to include the Pixar characters, and I am so excited that they are here with us today, as there's some pretty iconic duos amongst the Pixar canon as well. So yes, we're gonna take the Disney characters, the Pixar characters, and we're gonna put them all into one ranking list, but technically 2 videos. But yes, really the only requirement is that they must be an iconic duo and must have an unforgettable relationship with each other, and they must be animated characters. Besides that, it's pretty open-ended, so you could see a lot of romantic couples, you could see some friendships, you could see some family members, but these are all going to be duos, so 2 characters are going to be at each number on my list. But I believe all of that takes care of our disclaimers and conditions, so very quickly we're going to jump into the talking points that we are going to be sure to talk about for each individual number on today's list. For each of these Disney duos, we are first going to be identifying the Disney duo. We are going to discuss which Disney or Pixar film that they can be seen in. We're going to be talking about the relationship that the pairing has, meaning whether or not they are family, friends, a couple. We're going to talk about a brief description of the relationship between the characters, meaning what kind of arc they go on. And finally, because this is a ranking video, I am going to be talking about which side of the pairing I actually favor. So yes, there are going to be two Disney characters and they're going to be ranked together amongst other Disney duos, but then I'm also going to give you my favorite of the two. So with that being said, friends, we have a lot to discuss. So without any further ado, sit back, relax, grab yourself a snack and a drink, and let's get into my official ranking of Disney duos. Part 1. We are starting today's list all the way down at the bottom at number 40, who are Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde. Now, Judy and Nick, of course, come from the 2016 Disney animated film Zootopia, and as for their relationship, they are indeed friends. However, they do end up, spoiler alert, being partners. And by partners, I do specifically mean working in law enforcement together. Much like the whole pairing of good cop, bad cop. They're not necessarily romantic partners, but more so co-workers. As for the duo, Judy herself is a very determined rabbit cop, and Nick is a sly fox, and the two of them end up on a very rocky path that leads to a very strong friendship. Their teamwork helps to expose any corruption in Zootopia, and their bond is eventually built on mutual respect. Overall, I have talked about Zootopia in the past, and even though it isn't necessarily one of my favorite Disney films of all time, I cannot deny the iconic relationship that Nick and Judy have throughout their film. I think they're both very cute in character design, and I do like the relationship that they build over time. And so while yes, a lot of Disney duos were cut from my list as I did try to limit it to just 40 pairings, I couldn't help but keep these two off of my list as they're iconic enough in my opinion that they definitely deserve some attention. But as for where my loyalties lie, well, between the two characters, I actually have a soft spot in my heart for Nick Wilde. I love the whole comedy that he brings to the pairing, and I think he is a lot deeper of a character than most people see at first glance. We get to see him flash backwards to his childhood a few times, and we get that with Judy too, but I think the way that he was made fun of is very, very important as to who he ended up becoming. So yes, all the way down at the bottom at number 40 on my list are Nick Wilde and Judy Hopps, and my favorite of the two is Nick Wilde. But next we're gonna move on up to number 39 on my list, my first Pixar pair. At number 39 is Ian and Barley. Now, Ian and Barley, of course, are from the 2020 Pixar film Onward, and as for the relationship between these two characters, they are indeed brothers. Ian is rather shy and lacking in confidence throughout his movie, and he is often guided by Barley's enthusiasm. The quest to meet their late father actually ends up showing us that Barley was the father figure that Ian was looking for all along. Again, overall, while this movie and these characters aren't necessarily my favorite, I do think the relationship is very deep and very sweet to see unfold on screen. The struggle of not having their father around in their life is very evident from the beginning of the movie. However, as the story unfolds, getting to see them find that in each other is very, very heart-filling. Overall, between these two characters, I do think I would have to side with Ian, as I really do like his character, and sometimes can find Barley just a tad annoying. But I feel like that is very intentional, seeing as these are a sibling pair, so you're very easily going to gravitate with one of them and find slight annoyance with the other. But yes, Ian and Barley are very, very wonderful characters. Again, very deserving of making it on the list. I definitely wanted to include them and didn't want to leave them behind, and so they are going to go at number 39 on my list. Next, we're going to move on up to number 38 on my list, who are the characters Hero and Baymax. Now, Hero and Baymax, of course, come from the 2014 Disney film Big Hero 6, and as for their relationship, Baymax is the creation of Hero's older brother. The relationship is a little bit strange, however, I do very much feel as though it gives Big Brother, Little Brother energy, considering so much of Tadashi is put into Baymax. But still, he is a robot, and so we're going to say the relationship is between robot and creator's little brother. Let's go with that. But yes, as for a description of their relationship, Baymax is a healthcare robot who ends up becoming Hero's emotional support after the tragic passing of his brother, with their bond eventually being the key to Hero's healing and heroism. Overall, again, these two characters aren't necessarily two of my favorite from the Disney canon. However, I really, really like the relationship that they have with one another. The passing of Hero's older brother Tadashi is a very hard-hitting moment within a Disney film. And so to see him cling so dearly onto the last remaining piece of what his brother's work in life was is very, very touching. However, when taking both characters and putting them side by side, if I had to pick a favorite, I think a little obviously, it is going to go to Baymax. I think Baymax is so unbelievably cute. I love this robot so much. And yeah, the relationship that is created and not only compels the story, but is also created from a very tragic moment is what makes them rank over the other two pairings so far on my ranking list. Next, we're gonna move on up to number 37 on my list, who are the characters Basil and Dawson. Now, Basil and Dawson can be seen in the 1986 Disney film, The Great Mouse Detective. And as for their relationship, they are a detective and his sidekick, with of course, Detective Basil and the sidekick being Dawson. As for a description of their relationship, Basil is an eccentric but brilliant mouse detective who ends up taking in Dawson, who is a kind-hearted doctor. It's really fun to see these two go on their adventures together because they so mirror the iconic characters of Sherlock Holmes and Watson. Overall, again, I really do like these two. There isn't necessarily a place of dislike in my heart for them. I'm kind of just neutral overall to them, but I do think the adventures that they go on are quite entertaining. And between the two characters, I am partial to Basil himself. As the mouse incarnation of Sherlock Holmes, there was no way that he was not going to come out on top. I really do like this little mouse. We're going into the digital world. At number 36 is Ralph and Vanellope. Now, Ralph and Vanellope can originally be seen in the 2012 Disney animated film, Wreck-It Ralph. And as for their relationship, they are indeed friends. However, they sort of have a found family energy surrounding the duo. As for a description of their relationship, Ralph, an outcast, finds himself bonding with Vanellope, who is a glitch in her own game. Throughout the plot, they end up supporting each other's dreams, with Ralph ultimately proving his self-worth. Again, these two are an unlikely friendship and an unlikely duo, but I do really like the ups and downs that these characters have with one another. We see moments of really strong friendship between the two of them. However, when Ralph finds out something about Vanellope, he does have to briefly destroy her dream. This makes the characters have both ups and downs in their relationship, which makes it a little bit more complex and more entertaining to watch. But between the two characters, my friends, my loyalties do in fact lie with Princess Vanellope von Schweetz of Sugar Rush. I love this little glitch. I think she is so unbelievably cute, and even though the Wreck-It Ralph sequel was not my favorite, I do have to say, the moment of her interacting with all of the Disney princesses is probably one of my favorites. Yes, I like these two characters very much, and they definitely rank well above all of the other duos on today's list so far. Next, we're gonna move on up to number 35 on my list, who are the characters Oliver and Dodger. Now, Oliver and Dodger can be found in the 1988 Disney film, Oliver and Company. And as for their relationship, they are indeed friends. However, they do have a lot of energy of a mentor and his protege, seeing as Dodger, a street-smart dog, sort of takes Oliver, who is a stray kitten, under his wing and teaches him how to survive. Their friendship even strengthens after Oliver finds a new family, seeing as he is able to do so while still valuing Dodger and all of his wisdom. I really do love both of these characters a lot. I think the fact that they are both animals makes them so cute and so endearing. I think the information that Dodger bestows upon Oliver is incredibly helpful to him throughout his story, but I also think Oliver is such a cute kitten that you can't help but want to have emotional investment in him. I do think audiences will often sort of relate themselves more to Dodger, seeing as they would want to help out the stray kitten. However, between the two of them, I honestly prefer Oliver. I think he's so cute, and I just love him so much. And you can't help but root for him to be okay by the end of his animated film. But yes, I love these two characters. They're so cute, and I love their dynamics throughout their film. Next, we're gonna move on up to number 34 on my list, who is Emperor Kuzco and Pacha. Now, Emperor Kuzco and Pacha, of course, can be found in the iconic 2000 Disney animated film, The Emperor's New Groove. And as for the relationship these two have, they are friends, but I would even go as far to describe them as rivals to friends. As for their description, Pacha is a very kind villager who helps Kuzco despite his selfishness. Through his and Pacha's friendship, Kuzco eventually learns to value others, and to also incorporate humility into his own lifestyle. I think this relationship is very important in the Disney canon, especially because it's one of the first ones where we really see characters and how their actions impact somebody else's life. From the beginning of his movie to the end, Emperor Kuzco is a vastly different character, and the majority of the reason that this is the case is because of Pacha. I think both of these characters have a lot of great qualities, and I think their vast difference amongst each other makes for such a funny pairing. Their comedy is by far the funniest so far on today's list. And between all of the comedy that this relationship holds and all of the differences between these two characters, I really do think it makes them so entertaining to watch on screen. But as for my favorite between the two, it is indeed Pacha. I think he is such a wonderful, wonderful character. We see how he is such a devoted father and a loving husband, and also how far he will go to save his own home, even to the point of needing to friend a very selfish emperor. But his journeys and travels with Emperor Kuzco end up having a wonderful, happy relationship ending. This entire movie and their relationship makes for such a wonderfully entertaining movie, and it was impossible to make this Disney Duos ranking list without including Emperor Kuzco and Pacha. But next we're gonna move on up to number 33 on my list, who are the characters Carl and Russell. Now, Carl and Russell can be found in the 2009 Pixar film Up, and as for their relationship, they do end up as friends, but I would rather describe this as a surrogate grandfather and surrogate grandchild. What starts off as an unlikely meeting between the old curmudgeonly Carl and the very youthful wilderness explorer Russell ends up bringing on a huge adventure for this duo. Carl initially sees Russell as an annoyance, however over time he begins to care for him. Their adventure ends up leading Carl to let go of his past grief and to embrace new relationships. I absolutely love both of these characters so much, and it's actually kind of tough for me to have to pick one of the two because I do think Russell is so cute and I really, really love all of the energy he brings to this movie. However, this might surprise you. I think between the two of them, my favorite is Carl. I love his entire backstory with his wife, Ellie, and I also do think that his arc in this movie is vastly larger than any other character, and so getting to see him change over time is so wonderful and so entertaining. Yes, I love this duo so much. They are so wonderful, and I love that they sort of have, again, that found family with each other. Next, we're gonna move on up to number 32 on my list. This is an iconic duo. At number 32 is Chip and Dale. Now, Chip and Dale can be found in various Disney shorts, including Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. And as for their relationship, they are indeed brothers. As for a description of their relationship, these mischievous chipmunks often bicker, but always have each other's backs, especially when dealing with Donald Duck or other characters that they need to overcome. Overall, I really do love both of these characters. I think they're iconic in the Disney canon, and seeing as they are included in the VIP Disney characters, I did have to rank them higher than every other character on today's list, especially because they can be seen in so many animated shorts. Seeing how their relationship sort of switches up between the different shorts and where each brother sort of takes on different tasks is vastly entertaining, and it always leaves a little bit of guessing work as to which brother is going to take on which role in each different short film that they appear in. And in choosing a favorite between these two, it's kind of difficult seeing as they're very, very similar, but if I had to pick one, I think I would choose Chip. To me, he seems to have a little bit more leadership skills, and I just really, really like his overall character design. But next we're gonna move on up to number 31 on my list. This is a complex relationship. At number 31, is Kenai and Coda. Now, Kenai and Coda can be found in the 2003 Disney animated film, Brother Bear, and as for their relationship, they are indeed adoptive brothers. As for a description of their relationship, Kenai is a human-turned bear who unwillingly bonds with Coda, who is a young bear cub. Coda later realizes that Kenai is the reason for his mother's passing, which leads to a very powerful redemption arc. I think these two probably have one of the most complex relationships in all of Disney duos, and while they definitely rank much higher than every other duo on today's list so far, I can't necessarily put them any higher, and the reason is specifically for Kenai's actions within his animated film. If you have seen the animated film before, you will know exactly what I'm talking about, but for any who haven't, this one is really, really hard-hitting. The relationship almost seems as though Kenai shouldn't be forgiven. However, Koda is such a wonderful character that he finds it in his heart to forgive Kenai and also accept him as an adoptive older brother. And for this specific reason, Koda is going to come out on top in my personal favorites list. While I think Kenai is probably one of the most deep and complex animated characters, there's just something about his actions in his movie that I can't necessarily side with, and so I'm going to go with Koda on my own personal list. With that, friends, we've reached the halfway point of today's video, again, seeing as this is half of my list, and so if you have any guesses as to who is going to make the top half of my list, make sure to let me know down in the comments. Next, we're going to move on up to number 30 on my list, who's a really funny duo. At number 30 is Baloo and Bagheera. Now, Baloo and Bagheera can be found in 1967 Disney animated film, The Jungle Book. And as for their relationship, they are really, really opposites, but they end up sort of being surrogate parents to Mowgli. While obviously not a couple, each one of them has their own fathering relationship with Mowgli, the human child who ends up lost in the jungle. As for their relationship's description, Bagheera is responsible and cautious, while Baloo is rather carefree. Their opposing views on how to raise Mowgli lead to friction between the two of them. However, they end up agreeing to work together to keep Mowgli safe, seeing as they both care very deeply about him. Overall, I love the relationship between them. I think there is a lot of comedic friction between the two of them, but I also do think they are able to work together. And as for favorite between the two, I think I'm gonna have to go Bagheera, seeing as he's got a lot to deal with in this animated film, and I think he deserves more love. But next we'll move on up to number 29 on my list, who is Flynn Rider and Maximus. Now, Flynn and Maximus, of course, can be found in the 2010 Disney animated film Tangled, and these two are indeed rivals to allies. As for a description, Maximus is a palace horse who initially pursues Flynn Rider to bring him to justice, however, eventually begrudgingly works alongside him to help Rapunzel. Over time, their relationship, of course, does garner some mutual respect between the two. Overall, these two are so entertaining to watch. I think they are such a funny example of rivals to allies, but I also love how in times of need, they are both there for each other. Between the two, I gotta be completely honest, I am absolutely gonna pick Flynn Rider, as he is one of my favorite Disney princes, but we gotta give quite a big hand to Maximus for all that he accomplishes in his animated film. Next, we're moving on up to number 28 on my list, who are the characters Mike and Sully. Now, Mike and Sully, of course, can be found in the 2001 Pixar film, Monsters, Inc., as well as its sequel. And as for their relationship, they are indeed best friends. As for a description of their relationship, their friendship is indeed tested when Sully bonds with Boo. Mike initially resents the risk, but ultimately helps Sully to protect Boo, which proves their brotherly bond with each other. And even though Monsters, Inc. isn't necessarily one of my favorite films, either out of Disney or Pixar, I can't help but accept the absolutely iconic relationship that Mike and Sully build with one another in their animated movie. I like these two characters a lot, but if I had to pick one, ooh, this is really hard because they're both honestly cute. I think I'd have to go with Sully, because who doesn't love an iconic Sully hug in the Disney parks? Ooh, but next we're gonna move on up to number 27 on my list, the first villain pairing of the list. At number 27 is Flotsam and Jetsam. Now, Flotsam and Jetsam, of course, can be found in the iconic Disney animated film The Little Mermaid, which released in the year 1989, and they are indeed the villainous minions to Ursula. Seemingly, they are twins, but that is never confirmed, so we'll just say they're villainous minions. But as for description of their relationship, these two sinister eels serve Ursula, and help Ursula to manipulate Ariel into making her infamous deal with the Sea Witch. And they unfortunately meet their tragic end when Ursula destroys them both, unintentionally. Overall, I really love both of these characters. I think they are some of the most successful villain sidekicks of all time. And as for picking a favorite, they're kind of exactly the same, so let's just go with Flotsam. For no particular reason, but let's go with that. Next, we're gonna move on up to number 26 on my list, who are the characters Jacques and Gus. Now, Jacques and Gus come from the 1950 Disney animated film, Cinderella, and as for their relationship, they are indeed friends, but they are also both helpers to the main hero in their film. As for a description of their relationship, they are both mice who are quite loyal to Cinderella, and they both work to help her escape Lady Tremaine's grasp. Gus's clumsiness does contrast with Jacques' cleverness and all of his leadership skills. However, what I love about these two is that they always stick together and always work towards helping Cinderella to achieve her happiness. I love these two a lot. If I had to pick one of the two favorites, honestly, I think I would go with Jacques, seeing as he's more inclined to spring into action to help Cinderella. But I can't get over how cute Gus is, so honestly, these two might be pretty close to each other. But next we move on up to number 25 on my list. My first romantic pairing at number 25 is Jack and Sally. Now, Jack and Sally, of course, come from the iconic 1993 Disney film, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and they are indeed a romantic pair. For a description of their relationship, Sally does quietly admire Jack from a distance, while he seemingly obsesses over Christmas. In the end, he realizes that she's the only one who has truly understood him, and so they end up forming a lovely romantic relationship. While I do like these two very much, I do hesitate to rank them any higher than this number on today's list because I really do think Sally deserved a little bit more attention from Jack throughout her entire film. For a lot of this film, it almost seems like a one-sided relationship. But yes, overall I do like them very, very much. Not nearly the highest ranking romantic couple on today's entire list, but cute nonetheless. And between the two of them, this is really, really tough. I like Sally's music better, but I like Jack as a character more. I'll let you decide between the two. But next we're gonna move on up to number 24 on my list, staying on the romantic path. At number 24 is Wall-E and Eve. Now, these two iconic lovebirds come from the 2008 Pixar film, Wall-E, and they are indeed a romantic pairing. A romantic pair of robots. As for a description of their relationship, Wall-E and Eve meet each other on an abandoned Earth. Wall-E is a lonely trash compacting robot, and although she is initially indifferent, Eve does grow to love Wall-E over time, and eventually helps him to save humanity. I love these two little robots. I think they're so incredibly cute, and their entire story just truly works at bringing the two together and helping them help an entire race. Yes, I love these two a lot. If I had to pick one between the two, I would go with Wall-E. I think he is absolutely adorable. His character design, his interests, he's a collector. As we all know, I love Disney characters who are collectors. So yes, I'm gonna have to go with Wall-E, but I love these two. They are so, so cute. Ooh, we're getting to the top of today's list. At number 23 on my list is Robin Hood and Little John. Now, these two iconic Disney characters come from the 1973 Disney animated film, Robin Hood, and they are indeed friends, but they are also partners in crime. As for a description of their relationship, these two are merry outlaws who share a deep brotherly bond. They rob from the rich to give to the poor, while always staying one step ahead of Prince John. These two are so fun to watch. I love their relationship not only with each other, but also with other characters. And it seems like a lot of the relationships that they build upon with other characters come from their initial brotherly love for each other. Even though they are vastly different animals for each other, I can't help but feel as though that they are indeed family. Between the two, I think I would have to pick Robin Hood, but I do love both of them very, very much. Ooh, next we're gonna move on up to number 22 on my list. You all know that I love this duo. At number 22, is Flounder and Sebastian. Now, Flounder and Sebastian also can be found in the 1989 Disney animated film, The Little Mermaid, and they are indeed friends with one another, but they are also both friends to the main hero of their story, Princess Ariel. As for a description of their relationship, both always have Ariel's best interests in mind. However, both end up helping her in different ways. Flounder is her loyal best friend, while Sebastian sort of seems like a reluctant protector, and they both end up working together to aid Ariel despite their fears. Overall, their relationship with each other isn't necessarily the strongest, which is why they don't rank significantly higher. As you all know, I love The Little Mermaid. It's my favorite Disney animated film. But yes, I do love both of these characters very much. If I had to pick one, I think I'd pick Flounder. I just love how much he adores and loves Ariel and will go out of his way to help her, and always keeping her best interests in mind. But with that, friends, we've reached the final number of today's ranking list, number 21, which is indeed only the halfway point of my entire list. But the end of today's video at number 21, is Pongo and Perdita. Now, Pongo and Perdita, of course, can be found in the 1961 Disney animated film, 101 Dalmatians, and they are indeed a romantic pair, but also parents. This devoted Dalmatian couple is absolutely adorable and embarks on a dangerous journey to rescue not only their own 15 puppies, but also, without second guessing, eventually end up adopting 84 more. Their teamwork and love for family drive their story. Overall, I think these characters are very even in playing field for me. However, I always say I have to put Pongo one step ahead because he set up the situation that landed him and Perdita into their romantic relationship. Yes, I love these two so much they had to be the halfway point of my ranking of Disney duos. Whew, but with all that, friends, we have ranked 20 of Disney's iconic duos, but believe me when I say, this is nowhere near the end. We have only reached the halfway point of my full and entire list, and so with that, I'm going to put a pause on our ranking list. I'm going to very quickly remind you to subscribe down below so that way you never miss out on any future magic from me. And even though this list is to be continued, I will say stay magical, and until next week, I'll see you all real soon.